The European Union also imposing new sanctions against Moscow following an emergency overnight meeting. The EU says it would cut Russia's access to important capital markets and impose export curbs that would hurt its oil sector. The bloc adds Putin will not succeed in his goal of bringing Europe back to the age of empires and confrontations.
We will hold the Kremlin accountable. The package of massive and targeted sanctions European leaders approved tonight clearly demonstrates that. It will have maximum impact on the Russian economy and the political elite. Putin is trying to subjugate a friendly European country, and he's trying to redraw the maps of Europe by force. He must and he will fail.
Australia also imposed sanctions targeting Russia's elite and lawmakers. It also slammed China for easing trade restrictions with Moscow at a time when it invaded Ukraine. New Zealand, meanwhile, imposed targeted travel bans on Russia and prohibited goods trade to its military and security forces.
By choosing to pursue this entirely avoidable path, an unthinkable number of innocent lives could be lost because of Russia's decision. New Zealand calls on Russia to do what is right and immediately cease military operations in Ukraine and permanently withdraw to avoid a catastrophic and pointless loss of innocent life.
But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the continuous Russian aggression showed the sanctions are not enough. He adds the world continues to observe the assault on his country from afar. The International Criminal Court deeply concerned over the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. ICC prosecutor Karim Khan says his office is ready to investigate any act of genocide or possible war crimes being committed by Russia. As for the United Nations, it announced a $20 million humanitarian aid to Ukraine. It says protecting civilians must be the top priority in this crisis.
People, everyday innocent people, always pay the highest price. That is why the United Nations is scaling up our humanitarian operations in and around Ukraine. Today, I'm announcing that we'll immediately allocate $20 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund to meet urgent needs. We and our humanitarian partners are committed to staying and delivering to support people in Ukraine at their time of need.
The fallout to the global aviation industry from Russia's invasion of Ukraine worsens. Aside from closed airspace in Ukraine, airlines are also facing growing risks of doing business with Russia as more countries impose sanctions targeting Moscow's economy. Alaska's Anchorage Airport said carriers are starting to make inquiries about capacity in case routes over Russia are affected by the Ukraine crisis. The airport was a popular refueling hub for long-haul flights when Western airlines were unable to access Russian airspace during the Cold War. Meanwhile, Japan Airlines canceled its flights to Moscow, citing potential safety risks. Britain also closed its airspace to Russian airlines. Protests erupt around the world against Russia's assault on Ukraine, but as this report tells us, those who tried to do the same in Moscow were arrested.
From Beirut to Berlin to New York City, protesters came out in droves to express condemnation of Russia's all-out invasion of Ukraine, the biggest attack on a European state since World War II. Stop the war, stop bombing Ukraine, stop Putin, were the messages coming from demonstrators in Beirut on Thursday. One Lebanese Ukrainian said he came out in solidarity with what he called his brothers and sisters in Ukraine.
Today we are next to the Russian embassy. I don't know if we can still call it Russia because it's a dictatorship country. It's the renewal of Nazism in Europe.
In Madrid, a protester outside the Russian embassy held a sign showing Putin with a bloody handprint on his face. Spanish actor Javier Bardem joined the demonstrators.
I'm here to demonstrate my condemnation of the Russian Federation's warlike actions against Ukraine. But above all, to the concern over the wave of refugees this could generate as a consequence of this invasion.
Several hundred pro-Ukrainian protesters also gathered near Downing Street in London, calling on their government to impose more sanctions on Russia.
Stop! Putin, stop the war!
Images showing Putin and deep red blood were also seen in Istanbul, where Ukrainians, some tearful, gathered in dismay. A Ukrainian protester named Maria pleaded with Russian citizens to take a stand against Putin.
Please, Russians, go outside, declare that you are against this war.
Many Russians did just that. According to a protest monitoring group in Russia, police detained more than 1,600 people at anti-war rallies in 53 Russian cities.
An international security analyst believes Vladimir Putin is invading Ukraine to rebuild the old Soviet Union. Anders Kor says while Putin claims he's just trying to protect the Russian people, what he really wants to do is to take more territories.
He's an extremely dangerous man. He's a ruthless, bloody guy. I mean, he's killed thousands and thousands of people in Chechnya and Syria with his bombing of civilian sites. The root cause, really, I mean, is the way he would explain it is he's opposing NATO expansion. So after the end of the Cold War between the U.S. and Soviet Union.
An international studies professor warns about another dangerous consequence of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. De La Salle professor Renato de Castro says Russia's actions in Central Europe may inspire China to do the same here in the Asia-Pacific region.
What's happening in Europe is probably, given our status here in the region, is none of our interest. But what about in Asia? This might give another great power here the temptation to try to emulate what Russia is doing in Central Europe. And I guess everyone knows what country am I referring to, which also have a strategic, not alliance, a strategic partnership with Russia. And both their presidents met during the Winter Olympics.